FPOs.
Sure.
For many investors watching the divestment process, Mr. Bose, the one that really excites them is the Navratna, that's Coal India, and it's a fairly large-sized issue as well. While I take your point about the fact that you don't have a clear timeline in place, could you just walk us through how much progress has been made by way of discussion and deliberation, and where you've reached in the process of getting Coal India to the market?
Well, there have been discussions with the ministry as well as with the company. I have seen the CMD of Coal India has been very keen about the process, and maybe on your channel I have seen something which he has said about the process. But again, I must say that till we have some government approvals in place, we would really not be able to indicate a firm roadmap with the dates. Naturally, idea would be to try and get approvals, not necessarily for Coal India, but for all the what we want to do as soon as possible. But for a year-long program, it's not possible to do everything at the same time. Hence, we have to go step at a time, and that's why we begin with Satluj. We have EIL on the cards, and others would follow. And I hope to share that with you from time to time.
Absolutely, but you would say from what you've seen and read into discussion so far, you think Coal India would happen within this calendar year itself, i.e. within the year of 2010?
See, I would be, it would be presumptive on my part to commit government on any course of action on that. Let the government approvals come. As I said, the idea is to involve the people in this process of people's ownership of PSU. So, idea would be to get to all of you in the media with the information as soon as possible, as soon as we have the approvals.
You started this conversation, Mr. Bose, by outlining the 4 principles on which this disinvestment plan has been outlined, and one of them included the point about ownership. Now, this is not to run down the NTPC issue or anything like that, but you would have noted as well that the retail participation, which is what ownership, I presume, is about, has been lukewarm in many of the government issues in the past. As the divestment secretary, does that worry you? Do you have a plan to resurrect that? Or are you happy with getting issues subscribed by large institutional investors, even if that means that this new PSU paper is not being spread out among a large number of Indian hands?
So I would reiterate government's policy about people's ownership, and hence the importance of retail. Now, whether in every issue retail does as well as what it has done in the past, that's really a lot of things determine that. I mean, look at NTPC, for example. This time we got about 90 lakh applications for retail, as far as I recall. If you go back to its IPO, it was a huge number. I think 15 times that number for its IPO. So between the IPO and FPO, there is of course a difference. Retail can see price in the market. Retail consumers have the option. Investors have the option of going and picking up shares in the market. Now, this is a difference between IPO and FPO, which we all have to bear in mind. But having said that, and you asked earlier about the pricing, government will always endeavor to make the pricing fair and reasonable. There is a process by which this is done. There's a high-powered committee. There's an empowered group of ministers. Through them, government ensures that the pricing which is offered on these issues is fair and reasonable to everyone.
That is exactly, since you brought up the NTPC IPO, Mr. Bose, I mean, that was one of the biggest wealth creation exercises that the government indulged in, which is why it got 15 times the subscription of the FPO. In fact, there are instances in the past like NTPC and Maruti where issues were priced by the government so attractively that they got literally crores of investors in who made a lot of money. But that's not consistent with the recent IPOs. I'm not talking about FPOs here. But you look at the issue of NHPC. Nobody's made money on that. It was expensively priced. It is still trading below its issue price. And you don't have the FPO rationale on that at all. What I'm asking you is, can we get back to the NTPC Maruti days of IPO pricing from the government? Or is the whole pricing issue going to be led by investment bankers who are far more aggressive today than they were in the days of NTPC and Maruti when the IPOs were happening?
See, again, what is the government policy? The government policy is to encourage retail investors and broad-basing ownership, dispersal of ownership. So keeping with that, government would, see, as I mentioned, this is a dynamic and unfolding process. It's not a one-off thing. We are looking at one issue after the other. We are drawing whatever lessons we have to from issues, how they perform, and we take those lessons in to the forthcoming issues. That's how we are going to do. And in this respect, what you mentioned about certain older issues, how the NTPC IPO was done, certainly all this as part of the institutional memory bank of this department, which we draw upon from time to time, as well as draw lessons from examples which have happened recently.
But in all candor, Mr. Bose, you would admit that there may have been some excesses in terms of pricing from the primary market paper the government has had to offer through the past 6 or 8 months?
See, about pricing, I can't say anything more than what I have said. The government will always be fair and reasonable. The idea is to attract the retail investor. It's part of the policy. It's been reiterated in the budget speech. And everyone knows that broad basing of ownership has its tremendous benefits, which this department and the government as a whole certainly wants to see it happen.
Just one more final question, Mr. Bose, on why the department chose to do NMDC via the book build routes. Were you unhappy with how things progressed via the French auction method, something the divestment department was quite enthusiastic about the last time we spoke as a process to raise money or to determine a price?
As you are fully aware, SEBI allows the French auction route, or has allowed since January, it's very recent, only for FPOs. In the case of NMDC, with a very low float, it is virtually like an IPO. Hence, the department and the government took this view that NMDC, we should go the book building route, allowing investors the 5% discount.
Mr. Bose, we so appreciate your thoughts and time this morning. Thanks very much for joining in. We hope we will have opportunity to speak again in the future about how things are progressing at your department. Thanks once more for joining in. Let's take a break on that note. Things have been steady for the market. It is a couple of these power and infra stories that are picking up. Autos are a bit soft today. We'll come back.